And we know that we're going to have a conversation with the Ghana Tourism Authority. And Akwesi Agyemang, the Chief Executive, will be right here in the studio. But talking about all the related effects of coronavirus. We have to take you to the authorities at the Kotoka International Airport, where they've begun turning away non-Ghanaian passengers from infected countries or coronavirus as government travel advisory or restrictions kick off. Now, the move is expected to further deepen the woes of airport operators and airlines. And in today's AM business, Sheila Tamaklo has been engaging authorities and airline operators on the implementation of the travel restrictions and its impact on the aviation business.
So, as at 13 hours on today, Tuesday, well, the directive that states that non-Ghanaians or persons without Ghanaian citizenship will not be coming from the endemic zones of the COVID-19, that is, places that have recorded over 200 cases will not be allowed into the Ghanaian jurisdiction, has taken effect. And here are the arrivals of the Kotoka International Airport Terminal 3, where the managing director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited tells us that this directive is in full enforcement, and apparently quite a few passengers have already been turned back.
Any airline that showed up after 1300 hours this afternoon, the non-Ghanaians or people without Ghanaian permanent residency were turned back.
So far, about how many airlines have we had to turn back the passengers?
In total, 3 airlines. We have Emirates, Ethiopian, and Delta.
And altogether, about how many passengers?
I cannot give you the figures, but I know. I think one was on Delta, 13 on Emirates, and I've forgotten the figure on the Ethiopian one. But these are the airlines that came around the time of the ban taking place, and we allowed the directive to work.
So have the airlines been informed adequately about this directive, and what exactly has been communicated to them?
We communicated the directive to them. We communicated through a NOTAM. A NOTAM is a notice to airmen that informs the airlines that effective this afternoon, 1300, non-Ghanaians and people without permanent residency in Ghana from endemic places, and the endemic places are defined as places with, countries with more than 200 COVID-19 cases registered. So if you come from any country such as that, that person is not allowed into Ghana.
Okay, but then there's a question here that these people who were coming on the flight, possibly there were also Ghanaians on that flight who were admitted into the country. Now, what kind of checks then are we implementing on these other Ghanaians who came in here, because they sat in the plane with people from endemic areas?
Well, before we apply the directive, we have procedures at the airport to screen people for the virus. And I believe last week we took even the president through the terminal building and we demonstrated the process, which is a world-class process. The majority, a key determinant of somebody with a virus happens to be temperature. So we screen each and everyone who enters the nation, and if you find out that the temperature is above a certain normal, I think 37.8 or so, that person is quarantined or pulled aside for further discussions and so forth. So the same measures were applied to the Ghanaians who were allowed to come in. In addition, per the directive once again, we told people, we advised people to self-quarantine themselves for 14 days. For example, if you were traveling, if you were coming to the country and you know about the dangers of carrying the virus, I think if you're told that if you go home, try and stay away from other people, you should do it, because if you don't, then let's say you have it, but you're not showing signs, and you infect your loved ones, I don't think you'll love it. So that word has been carried out. We spoke to everyone, we explained to them the dangers, and I think right now with all the information that has been shared from around the world, people have become aware of the dangers of the coronavirus. Look at what is happening in France. The country has basically shut itself out from the outside world. And so we believe that the information that we gave to Between us, I mean, Port Health, Ghana Airports Company, Immigration, Customs, we give to our fellow citizens and people residing in the country will be followed when they go home.
But whilst this directive is being enforced, how are the airlines taking it? Well, indigenous carrier Africa World Airlines tells us that they have had to reduce their regional flights by about 40% and domestic ones by about 20%. So we'll be speaking to the Chief Operations Officer of Africa World Airlines, who is in the person of Sean Mendes, who explains further to us.
There has been an impact on the number of passengers who are traveling in recent days. The travel advisory that the government of Ghana has put out, which effectively bans non-essential travel to Ghana effective 1300 hours today, is already showing an impact on some of the regional routes. We have trimmed some of our capacity on regional routes by about 45% and on domestic routes by about 20%. But we'd also realize that as an airline operator, we have a responsibility to the communities that we serve to maintain a level of essential service. So we're going to maintain service to all of our destinations for now, and we're continuing to maintain that as long as it is feasible to do so.
Okay. So with this trim that we are seeing, 20% and 45%, that's pretty huge. How is this also impacting your revenues, your financials?
Well, certainly the revenues are taking a hit, but of course when you're not flying these flights as well, there is a savings on the cost side as well. We're fortunate with Africa World Airlines that we're well positioned to be able to ride this out. So at this time, we're not looking at layoffs or anything else. We are confident enough that the measures we are taking, both operationally as well as financially, to conserve our resources and to optimally deploy them for the benefit of our staff, for the benefit of our passengers, for the benefit of the consumers and the traveling public in general, will ensure that when you fly with AWA, you can fly safe and fly confident.
Okay. Now, amidst all these issues, you've seen a number of airlines, for instance, SAS, is laying off about 90% of its staff. It cuts across. Lots of airlines are laying off staff, some are sending them home. Are we seeing a similar thing here?
At this time, Africa World Airlines believes that we are poised properly to be able to ride out this crisis. We have a plan and we're implementing this plan. We don't anticipate at this time to need to go into layoffs or similar, but we are encouraging staff with outstanding leave balances or so forth to claim their leave right now. Non-essential, non-operational staff are already on work from home and have been for a while. We have implemented protocols for our staff in operational roles at the airport, on the aircraft. They are all engaging in mandatory disinfection of hands. They are wearing face masks. They're wearing gloves if they're in customer contact. And all of this is being done for the safety of our staff as well as the safety of our passengers to prevent cross-contamination. If your passport, for example, may have been on a surface that is contaminated, it's essential that when you handle it and our staff handle it, that any contamination is not passed across. And so we're using gloves and sanitizers and things like that to ensure that we're doing everything we can that for those people who have to travel during these times, and there are people who have essential jobs who do need to travel, that they are traveling safely, and they should be confident that when they fly with AWA that they are able to travel safely.
The situation is no different for the international carriers, and Air France KLM country manager Dick Van Nuenzen also tells us that this impact is going to be severe for the airline. In fact, there's going to be a reduction in bookings, and for them, KLM and Air France are considering 70 to 90% reduction in their flights.
Our business is impacted heavily. As per today at 1 o'clock, the travel advisory is taking place. Now that means from countries more than 200 people infected, the citizens are not allowed anymore. Unless if you're a Ghanaian national, you're allowed to come back to Ghana, but if you're a foreigner holding a resident permit, you're allowed. But if you don't hold a resident permit, you're not allowed in the country. 75% of my business is coming out of Europe. Now that means the whole of Europe, I think you have almost every country is more than 200 people infected. That means nobody can come from Europe to Ghana. Now, same more or less with the USA. Our flights will go via Amsterdam to the US. There is a flight ban between the US and Europe, so also there are no passengers. I'm virtually flying empty as from this afternoon. Outbound flights Accra to Europe are full because everybody is planning to return to the home country. So on that part, you have seen our ticket office in the front, it is full. people are rushing off to their home country, and be it Amsterdam, be it Europe, be it I don't know where.
Okay. But so coming back to the question now with the ban, with the flights coming in, what percentage decline are you going to see, or how bad are you all this?
It is estimated. There was yesterday a message from our CEO, Mr. Alberts, that 70 to 90% of our flights will be cancelled to worldwide network, because there is a ban on Far East, there are bans on the USA. Within Europe you cannot travel anymore, and flights will be grounded because we simply don't have passengers. If it is 70%, if it is 90% what will be grounded, I don't know, but it is expected that between 70 and 90% of our flights will be grounded.
Meanwhile, several other airlines have taken similar actions, all because of the coronavirus outbreak. These include Brussels Air, which has suspended its flights temporarily effective 21st of March. So, reporting from the Kotoka International Airport, my name is Sheila Tamaklo.
Well, just telling us that, look, this is a situation that we can all have a tamps on. That's good work there by Sheila Tamaklo.